Hey everyone, Brendan here. Over the past 10 years, I've created more than 150 monsters for 5th edition across 11 manuscripts. Today, I'm going to walk you through how to easily create your own homebrew monsters, whether you're a DM looking to challenge your players or a creator working on your own projects. I'm condensing all of my experience working with writers, designers, and editors from multiple monsters. I've worked with folks that have been involved from the beginning, working on the Monster Manual, Dungeon Master's Guide, etc. So I have learned from the best, and I am here to share those details with you today. Whether you're a DM looking to challenge your players or you're a creator working on your own projects, I've got you covered. Plus, I have a free tool that I will go ahead and give you access to, as well as walk you through how to use. So, step one, inspiration. What is it that you're trying to make and why? And this a lot of times will lead you to the direction of designing it. Step two would be that 5-second monster. So this is just reskinning something. I will give you an example of how I could do this with one of the monsters already available. Step three, modifying existing stat blocks. So this is taking something that already exists, and then you're going to add your unique flavor that you're trying to realize for this particular game and implement that. And then step four will be starting from scratch. In this case, I'm going to take an example of how to take a subclass and build that into an NPC. So this will give you the inspiration for these are some abilities that this has, and this is how I would convert them into being an actual monster. And you could apply this to all sorts of different media. If you had a favorite superhero you wanted to pull in, a comic book character, something like that, or a character from a favorite novel or other media such as unrelated movie, something like that. This will walk you through how to take that initial concept and build out from scratch this new creature you want to create. Inspiration and your pain point you're trying to solve. So this could be all sorts of different use cases. You want a single creature that everyone's going to fight against, so you like some sort of boss, mini boss, something like that. You want a specific setting where there is a shortage of interesting monsters in that setting. Whatever your need is, that will help drive which one of these options you want to pursue, as well as what kinds of things you might want to think about when you're building out your creature. I think the inspiration and need is actually covered pretty well in 4th edition in Dungeons & Dragons, where they have a good breakdown of the monster roles. They do a pretty good job running through. Their roles are defined as artillery, brute, controller, lurker, minion, skirmisher, soldier. Then they have elite monsters, solo monsters, and then a leader. And then for that other inspiration, it could also just be that you saw some sort of really cool combat in a movie, or you had this idea based on something that happened in real life where it's like, this would be a really fun thing to implement for the players to solve. And then you can go ahead and start building that. So let's go and dive in. That first one, the 5-second monster reskinning. So I've just gone into monsters. I'm looking at the ogre right now. This is one of my go-tos because it's just so simple. Especially for like new players, or if you don't have a ton of experience running games, this is a very straightforward creature. It has a very low AC, so the characters feel usually pretty good because they can hit it. It has 2 attacks. It has a ranged attack with its javelin, which it could also use melee, but it doesn't do as much damage. And then it has the Great Club. Both of them, they have a high chance to hit, and they do really good damage. So this would be a pretty standard brute where he is going to be doing a lot of damage, but he is also a little bit on the easier side to take down, even though he has a lot of health. He just does not have the defenses. We're going to take your ogre and we're going to just change this into a completely different creature. From the player's perspective, they have no idea what they're fighting, especially if you're describing it and it looks very different. So we could start off, we could keep the size if we wanted, or we could go differently. Let's make this gargantuan. So it is just freaking enormous. And then let's change it into an aberration. And then let's make it have one giant tentacle that is just like bringing down and smashing things with. So we could even keep that damage type if we want, or we could change it to something like piercing if it's got spines on it, or we could change it. Maybe it's more like a phantom based where it's going through the characters and actually does psychic damage. You could just change like those 3 things. It doesn't change anything about how difficult the creature is to fight, but it would change the character's perspectives. They don't know what this thing is. They don't know what its armor class is. They don't know how many hit points it has. They don't know what it's good at, what it's bad at. They can guess from the size likely that it would be strong, which could be a characteristic you want to highlight. But other than that, they may not know. And this would give you all of the things you need to have what feels from the player's perspective as a brand new creature. They don't know anything about it because you just made it up, but all you did was you took the ogre and you reskinned it. Okay, let's jump into the next one. So the next one, I'm actually going to pull up a tool here that I have built, and and it's in the description below. So I have gone ahead and I have built out this monster creation tool. If you expand at row 2, I've put some details in here on how to walk through and do this, as well as some notes. You also can just completely ignore that and just jump in if you'd like. I've done my best to dummy proof this, where I have put in the mandatory steps. In my opinion, it's much easier to choose the CR you're trying to make and then build to that versus the inverse of just putting down some details and then seeing what CR it is. The other areas, adjusting the damage, creature's con, AC, etc. Maybe we're actually going to start with that ogre as an example there, and we will build some modifications from there. Now let's go ahead and actually change it, and we'll add some details here. So looking here, I've got the ogre and I've got some details, and maybe I want to start with that. And maybe I actually want to take this creature and I want to make it a little stronger. So I'm going to target making this into a CR3. So we're going to try to build a CR3 ogre. And then I'm going to run through all the steps here. I want to make him big, so let's make him huge, whereas the regular ogre is a large. Speed, the base is 40. Let's make this guy a little faster. It doesn't have any resistances or vulnerabilities. What you would do here if you were going to do save DCs, think of this like a dragon, where if a dragon's primary damage is its breath weapon, and that is the most damage it's going to do, that is the thing you're going to want to use. We want it to be doing attacks. I don't think I want this creature to have any sort of magic or anything like that. This is going to be another brute, but just bigger. Its con is going to matter because that's going to factor into its health. So the normal one is 16. So let's make this guy an 18. That's going to be a +4 to that con. So that is going to factor down the hit points they've got. The creature's AC. Yeah, let's make him a little tankier. So let's bump him up to 12. I don't want it to be huge, but just a little teeny bit there. Maybe we should give him a one-time use attack where he's got the great club, but maybe he's got something where he can go all in, and we want to highlight that. His attack bonus is 6, so we want to override that. I think it's worth giving him something. So one of the options to think about here, if we jump over to the Dungeon Master's Guide. So if we look here, there are the monster features that give you all sorts of details on how to change the difficulty of that creature. So they have the brute, like bugbear, where they get extra damage based on whatever is in the trait. But I don't think that's the one I want to do. I actually think I want to pull from the orc, where they have aggressive. All right, has loaded in. We can see aggressive. As a bonus action, the orc can move up to its speed toward a hostile creature that it can see. The great axe is its primary damage, and it's dealing 9 damage. So it is weird to me that they decided that essentially it's got that bonus action that gives it an extra 2 damage. And the concept here is that it's able to move substantially further. Think of something like a rogue, which will increase its average damage output because it can get more attacks in, because it might not have to use those actions to move. I think we can do kind of what they did here, where if we just make an assumption that this is going to be a 22% increase in damage. I'm thinking that they were of the mindset that this will give them in a normal combat, perhaps 20% of the time an extra action or an extra attack, which if that's kind of the calculation that they're doing there, we can run with that. We want to increase its damage by 22%. So let's go ahead and multiply that by whatever we decided we're going to be doing, 17 damage. So 17, that's going to be an extra 3.77. I'm going to round this up. We're going to bump this up then if it was up by 4. So that's going to be 21. And we have our damage per round. So we made some slight changes here. We increased the size, we increased the con, we increased the AC, and we increase the damage. Here we can see what's happening where there isn't any benefits happening to the AC. These two lines are the same. We can see there it doesn't have resistance or vulnerability or anything like that. So that is all going up. And then we can see based off of its defensive capabilities, essentially health and AC combined together, this is where it's at for its defensive CR is a 3 and its offensive CR right now is a 4. So this is too strong. What we can do is we can either update the health where we could drop this. So if we wanted, right now it's got 10 hit dice, but we could drop this down to say 7, and that puts us right at 2.5 up to 3, and it has 73 health. So we could do that. That's one option. The other option is we could give it vulnerabilities where maybe it's got 3 vulnerabilities. So if we said yes here, now its health is effectively cut in half, and it's actually too weak. Because this is a brute sort of creature, I want it to have high health. The other option we can do is we can actually decrease that AC even further. Maybe we want to drop that down because right now it was sitting at 11. If we take this down to 10, final pre-round AC at 3. So defense at 2, offense at 4, final at 3. That is about what we're looking for. So it has 105 health, pretty hardy creature, but it only has an AC of 10. And we haven't increased any of those other stats. If we go back from the orc to the ogre, we know that a lot of those capabilities are very low for them. So we would essentially be using all of these same things. So we could just copy this in here if we wanted to keep track of this for our actual usage in game. So that would be our next one, where we've taken a stat block that exists, we've made some tweaks to it, we have bumped this thing up to a CR3. I think this would be a really fun creature to build with. So this is what we've got. Our final option is to start from scratch. If we jump back over, I wanted to build out this sorcerer. I think I'm gonna have him be just a very low level CR1 or something where it's a controller. I think there's limited creatures at that level that are interesting, where they don't just have like a standard attack and that's it. Where this one will actually, I want to build out this astral jaunt piece in particular. I think this is going to be like their core unique thing, where they're going to use this both to move their allies to safety, as well as put the enemies into, could be the players, into environmental hazards, or set them up for some AoE sort of spells, because I think that would be really impactful. And they could also do it with themselves. They could swap their place with someone else, maybe another player. So they've repositioned two people, themselves and the player, to then hit them with this AoE. So I think that is the direction I want to go with this. So we want this astral jaunt. This is going to be their big thing. Starting from scratch, I want to build a CR1 creature. I think this would be a good, actually, let's do a CR half. This creature is going to have just base speed of 30. Its size, I think let's actually make this small. This could be like a goblin. Maybe we're making an astral jaunt goblin, and this goblin is going to be part of the pack, where you've already got a few other variations of goblin you could use, where maybe you have an encounter with the goblin boss, the base goblin, and then the astral sorcerer goblin. The AC at low levels gets more difficult when a creature can fly and it has range damage. So our stats here, most of these aren't going to be useful, because the only thing I care about in this particular instance is con. I actually think I want this guy to be a little hardy. Let's keep him at 12. So that was the default standard suggested here, but we'll go with that. And let's give him a little bit higher of an AC. We'll go on, he's more on the dexterous side. So maybe he's wearing maybe he has mage armor plus the base there. Let's actually put him at maybe like a 16. And then he's not gonna end up with very much health, just to make sure that stays in position. But I think what we could do is we could have him, I think he should have access to 2 spells, because we want this ability to function in here. And his save DC is going to be, so it'll be 8 plus 2 for that proficiency bonus at the level. So we're looking at 10 plus, if he's got, say, maybe he's using charisma, like the sorcerer. So that would be a plus 3 if he's at 16. So we can call that out here. I guess we can build out the rest of these. We said he had a 16 dex. And then maybe his strength is extremely poor at like a 5. And his intelligence, let's keep pretty high. Wisdom, I actually think I'm going to bump this lower. I think he's charging into battle, acting kind of as a melee character, but not super tanky as far as like health goes. And then the damage per round is way too high, but his save DC is going to be that 13 we discussed. The average damage per round, I'm thinking if he has an effect kind of like Thunder Wave every round, I think that could be cool. So that's 2d8. So that's 9 damage per round. On AoE spells, you should assume you're going to hit 2 creatures. Obviously, there's a chance you'll hit 3, but the base assumption is AoE is going to hit 2 and the other ones are going to hit 1. So we're going to do 9 damage times 2. So that's going to be doing 18 damage per round. So if we look at where we're at, we're already pretty high here. But this health is way higher than I'm anticipating. Go back to our orc example here. An orc is a half CR, so this is not a bad place to jump off from. Armor class is 13, hit points is 15, and we are at 67. So I'm thinking we are much closer to like the 15 range. Let's see, we did 2 hit dice, that puts us at 9. And this is still a bit strong. You can see where the stuff is coming in. So defensively, they're only a CR 0.25, and that's because their AC is so high. But offensively, their damage is pretty high because they're doing AoE with that Thunder Wave. Maybe it's 2d4, so that'd be doing 5 damage. This is a little stronger than we want still. So we need to decrease one other thing. We could bring the AC down a little bit. So 14. Okay, so if it's AC 14, that means their dex is gonna be, actually we could leave their dex here and they have them wear leather armor. As we're doing this, I think I will actually build out the full thing. All right, so we have our details to put in. This is the astral, actually that's a good point. Let's just make this astral sorcerer. We can make it small humanoid. So based on the details we put in here, our AC is gonna be, all right, we're gonna do leather armor, and that's all we need. So dex is gonna be 16. We did strength at 5. So that is we've got all of these details shown up here to help guide you on this path. We have no damage resistances, so we can get rid of all of this. Let's see, are we happy with where we're at? He's slightly stronger than we want, potentially. So, but that health is really low already. I would guess in most instances, if this character takes 2 hits, potentially 1, he will go down. So, and his AC is not that high. So for a half CR, this is maybe even a little too squishy, but he's got some pretty good capabilities. So I think having him slightly above that 0.5 is probably okay, because he's not going to get the jump on you with that really low wisdom in most cases. The one other option we can do is we can decrease that damage further. So rather than having that be 5 times 2, we could make it 4. So I think we want this to be a melee spell attack, and we're going to make this for his action the Thunder Push. All right, so instead we'll keep this, and we will, instead of it being an attack, we're going to make it a save DC. So this is going to be something like more like a Dragon's Breath. So if we went and looked that up. Okay, so we could pull this from Acid Breath, for example, where we want this to be its attack. Sorcerer. It's best to use like language that people are familiar with. I think we could do a cone. This needs to be much shorter. We do a 15-foot cone, and we can get rid of all that stuff. Sorcerer, Pell's Force, and a 15-foot cone. Each creature in that cone must make a DC 1d8. So this would be that 4 damage. Force damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. All right, I think we actually want to pull, okay, Thunderwave. We need to make sure that they have some sort of melee attack, because they need to be able to make an opportunity attack. So they are a threat. So we can actually probably copy this and then modify it to what we want. This is SRD, so it's totally game if we would like it. This is changing a spell and a subclass into a stat. So we have a Thunderous Force sweeps out from you. So I would ideally run through and change that, but you can do that on your own time. But this is all pretty good. We want to change that to be a 1d8. We want to provide the base damage or the average damage there, so someone could just run it quickly if they want. All right. One thing to keep in mind is we do need to give them another action. We need to make sure that they have some sort of melee attack. I'm just going to go copy one from up here. And this is pretty good and actually already correct. So they can do that. All right, perfect. We got that built in. We got this built in. We need a bonus action. So this is going to be bonus action. And this is where we want to build out our unique sorcerer feature. In progress, Astral Sorcerer. So we got a bonus action. We're going to need to give it a name. And we want to call this, we can call this Astral Jaunt, just like we had it. And we'll change the language. The sorcerer pushes the consciousness of 2 creatures through the astral plane immediately before or after using Thunder Push. We'll get rid of that. And then it can teleport 2 creatures. It can see within 10 feet of itself, swapping their positions. All right, we've done it. We've got our Astral Sorcerer. It's a small humanoid. I'm thinking goblin, but you could totally run with this. You could also change the size if you want. We've got our AC. We need to put in our health here. So this is a 9, which would be 2d6 plus 2. 2d6 plus 2. And I am looking right here for where that's putting that out. You could also, again, use that stat block that's further up in here. But health, armor class, we've got average damage per round, which needs to feed into the actions and bonus actions area. So we've got our Thunder Push. So I think this would be a fun creature to play against. Now the next thing to do, we've got what we think is our base here. Oh, almost forgot. We got to update the CR here. So this is a half, and it is going to be, yeah, I think right now we're in the middle, but because it has this Astral Jaunt, rather than this on average doing 2 creatures, because it has that ability, it's very likely that this particular individual could get higher than that. They could swap their allies' location with an enemy's, etc., and be extremely effective with this ability. So I want this to be higher because of that. Okay, so that gives us those details. And then again, Now it's time to test. So we got a creature. He gets in melee with that armor class, or when creatures close within melee with him, that might be even better. He could then change places with one of the creatures that's near him, use this ability, it pushes them, then he runs away from them. Could be hard to close with him, and he could function more as a crowd control skirmisher kind of creature. I think there's a lot of potential here. This could be really fun. So I think that gets us our creature. So we, just to recap here, from the beginning, you need that inspiration. You need something to help you figure out what you actually want to build. What niche is it filling that you have a hole in right now? You need to figure out what role this creature is going to fill. Is this RP focused? Is this exploration focused? Is this, you need that artillery creature that you're just missing in that, I don't know, setting? Do you want to do the very fast option of doing a just reskinning of something that already exists? Change that size potentially or creature type, and that might be enough, or even change that damage type and you're good to go. You haven't changed anything that will affect how difficult that creature is for someone to handle. Or you could go the next step of taking something that already exists and adding a few things. Maybe you add a trait to it like we did with the ogre, where we added that aggressive from the orc. And we also made it huge and increased that damage die appropriately to kind of match that increased weapon size. So it does more damage. It was a little tankier with that increased health. It was a little faster with that extra movement. All those things made it a little bit more of a challenge. Or you could start from scratch. We had an ability that we liked that was in something else. We had a spell that we liked that was in something else. Pulled those two together, figured out what CR we want this creature to be, and now we've built that out. I think this is going to be a fun dude that I'm looking forward to throwing into some playtesting. All right, so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I have a link to that document in the description where you can go ahead and you can play with this monster designer as much as you like. I hope you found this super useful, and I love making this kind of stuff. So if you have something you want me to make, you want a personal video on some topic that millions of other people haven't been able to watch too, let me know. Let's do it. All right, take care, everyone. All right, second part there. I'm condensing all of my experience working with writers, designers, and editors from multiple monsters. I don't like this. All right, try again.